Hey there, my name's Mark Savell. I'm a realtor with Sage Real Estate and a blogger over at torontolivings.com. And in this video, we're going to focus on 2018, the year that was. We're going to look at some of the winners and some of the losers and really take a closer look at what exactly happened last year. So let's get into it. Okay, if this is your first time checking out the channel, I primarily talk about real estate in the city, and if you want to learn more, just hit subscribe. And in this video, we're really going to focus on 2018 and take a closer look at exactly what happened in the real estate market here in Toronto. Now, you can't talk about 2018 without mentioning 2017 because that was such a pivotal year in the city. If you remember back in 2017, we hit record highs we've never seen before, especially in the detached housing market. So let's start with maybe a quick summary of what happened then, and that will better explain where we ended up in 2018. And so for the first part of 2017, the market, it just took off. Like, it was insanely busy. We had detached homes selling way over $1.5 million as an average price. We saw the condo market really take off. We would see bidding wars of 20, 30, even 40 people trying to buy one house. It was just crazy, right? That kind of lasted up until March, April of 2017. At that point in time, the government introduced some new legislation. The mortgage criteria changed and the way they were lending money got a little bit tighter. And I think affordability and buyer fatigue really kicked in. I think people were just like, this is nuts. Like, we just can't afford these type of prices or can't make these offerings and pay these types of mortgages on these houses. So the market really started to slow down after about, I would say, May, June of 2017. We saw July, August, really slow months, and we saw prices for the detached market really start to come down. Now in September to about December 2017, we slowly started to pick up steam. The detached market, not so much, but condos, semis, and townhomes, they kind of carried their weight, and that brings us to early 2018. Now in the beginning of 2018, I cautioned, I said, listen, expect the media and the newspaper headlines to solely compare 2017's record high to whatever we do in 2018. And knowing that we probably weren't going to reach those goals, I forecasted that we're probably going to see a lot of negative headlines in the media. And we got a lot of those. But what do you expect? You had a record-breaking year one year. You can't constantly, break records every year type of thing. So 2018 was a lot of that. But one thing I did was I really started tracking the 3-month trend, because I think when you look at the market in a quarter at a time, you could really get a better sense of the direction we're going. And really now is the only time that matters, right? Like, last year doesn't matter so much. It's more of what's the direction we're going. And so in saying all of that, let's kind of take a look at exactly the overall picture of how the market performed. And then I'm going to kind of narrow it down to the individual different segments. So starting with prices, we achieved an average price in 2018 of $783,000. That number is down. It is down from 2017, where we saw $806,000 as the average price. And keep in mind, the reason for that difference is really tied to the detached housing market. As prices came down, that brought down the overall average price. And I like to look at the detached as a bit of a double-edged sword. In 2017 it charged and led the way. In 2018 it was an anchor, and that's why the average price, I think, shifted down so much. We're down about 2.5%. Now for new listings, we had our busiest month in May of 2018. We recorded about 19,000 new listings coming to market, and that does sound impressive. But compared to 2017, we had 25,000. So we had about a 6,000 difference in the amount of new listings that came to market, and that also affected why the price was shifted down. There was just less inventory to work with. Now shifting to sales, and this is where we really see that fundamental difference between what we saw in 2017 and 2018. We were down 16% in 2018. Sales really came down from the 93,000 we recorded in 2017 to only about 77,000, about 78,000 in 2018. And the final analytic I kind of want to look at to get a broad sense of how the market performed is days on market. In a hot market, obviously that number is really low. In 2018, what we saw was the average amount of time it took for property sell was about 25 days. The slower months like January and December, we were at about 30 days. And in the really hot months, and that's the summer or the spring market, between about March and June, we averaged about 20 days on the market. So I mean, putting everything into context, that's not a long time. No, it's not the 7 days, we would sometimes see in the 2017 market, but a month to sell your home. I mean, as long as your home sells, that's the ultimate goal. So that kind of puts into context kind of how we ended the year. So let's start with the losers. The detached housing market, hands down, that was the one market that really saw a clear as day decline. We're down about 5.5% in 2018 versus 2017. At its peak in 2017, we had prices at just over 1.5 million. We ended the year with an average of about 1.3 million. Now, moving into townhouses, because that was another interesting market. I wouldn't call it necessarily a loser, but it didn't perform, I think, as well as I and many people expected it to. We kind of started the year off well, and around April, we hit our high of about 790,000. But from April to the end of 2018, the market really started to come down, and we averaged out at about 740,000. So that's going to be really interesting to see if that kind of picks back up in the new year, or if it continues on this downward trend. We're just gonna have to wait and see, I guess. So shifting to the winners, condos, hands down, they were the best performing segment of 2018. There's no doubt in my mind that if this was award season, they would win most improved, most valuable. They take home all the trophies. Year over year, we're up about 9%. Year to date, about the same amount. We're kind of seeing the average price of a condo in the city in and around $600,000. At its peak, we hit about $615,000 in September, and we're averaging about $595,000 as a final number. We started the year off at about $540,000, so you can see there's a nice positive trend there. And I think affordability and downtown location are some of the big reasons why condos continue to perform as good as they did. They also had the most amount of sales, but you have to put it into context. There is a lot of condo units versus houses on the market, but nonetheless, the condo market performed really, really well. Now, I want to talk about the forgotten cousin of real estate, and this is the one segment that I think we really got to watch in 2019. I think if you're looking to buy a place, this is the style to buy, and it is the semi-detached house. This market has been insane. I've watched it very closely, and I've really seen this trend pick up, especially between about January and November. December was a seasonally low month, but those 11 months, we really saw the price pick up. At its high, the average price of a semi-detached house was about $1,060,000. We ended it just under $1 million at about $990,000. And I think semis are going to continue to be a valuable style of property that people are going to want for two big reasons. One, the price, and second, the style. In terms of price, with an average of below $1 million, you don't need 20% down to purchase a semi. And a lot of them come with 3, some 4 bedrooms. So compared to a bungalow, they give you just a little bit more space. Now, my other theory is that when you start in the real estate game, you typically start with a condominium, and you're usually single. And as time goes on, maybe you partner up with someone else, or you decide you need a little bit more space. And the natural next step is to try and move into a house once you've kind of outgrown the condo living. Detached are still 1.3 million. Even if they've come down, it's still $1,300,000 on average to buy one of those. Whereas a semi is far more affordable. It offers very similar styles of ownership. I mean, you do share a wall with a neighbor, but you've got the backyard, you've got the parking in a lot of cases, and you've got the space. So as the gap between semi and detached homes this is about 300,000 at the moment, I can really see that number closing, as a lot of people say, hey, we can still get into a house without the cost of a fully detached. So I think a lot of these condo buyers are going to be shifting into there, and I'm really expecting the semi-detached market to really take off in 2019. So that's kind of my thoughts on what we saw in 2018. I mean, it wasn't a record-breaking year. Really wasn't expecting it to be, but all in all, it was a much more balanced market. There was a lot more flexibility. You weren't competing against 20-30 people. You could actually put conditions in your clauses like financing and home inspection if you're purchasing a house, and ultimately I think it was a year of kind of coming back down to a little bit more normalcy, and it's going to be really interesting to see where 2019 goes. So if you have any questions, comments, even predictions on the new year, please leave them in the comment section below, and if you haven't yet, hit subscribe. Thanks for watching.